I feel like I don't really talk about myself a lot on here, but if there's one thing I would say about myself is that I'm a huge Pokemon fan. Been playing the game since like Gen 5, but was watching my brother play since like Gen 2. But ever since Gen 5, I've been playing all the games and even went back to play a couple of the games just to try them out for myself. Cause hand-me-downs, you get to play like after your brother beats the whole game. You're like, oh, cool. I get to go to the routes or whatever. But nah, I really do love Pokemon. One of my favorite things to do back in the day was to watch like the PokeTubers go through like a new game. Just off the top of my head, I could just name like Shady Penguin, he's a classic. Tyranitar 2, another classic. The King Nappy before all that stuff with him happened, which was kind of broke my heart, but that's not what this video is about. Shofu is a big one. The ciphers and everything, the raps that I really did like form a lot of my childhood. After playing all the games, I even got into Pokemon Showdown, which if you didn't know is like an online browser where you can play against people on the ladder and just try to rank up on the games. In Sword and Shield, I played VGC for a bit. I was number 4 on the ladder. I always tell people this like it matters, but I was number 4 on the ladder for like 2 days. Okay, it was a very proud moment for me because I had never played VGC before then, and then I just got number 4. Anyways, all of this is to say that I'm a big Pokemon fan, but not over the years, recently, I think I've noticed that fans are beginning to not enjoy the games as much anymore. And I wanted to make a video on this like sentiment. I wanted to make a video on like what I feel about the games, how I feel like Generation 9 might be one of the biggest turning points, because, well, we'll get into that, but I just wanted to make a video expressing my opinion on Pokemon because, like I said, I'm a huge Pokemon fan, and it hurts to see the Pokemon fandom like starting to lose faith in the games. I was gonna make this video when BDSP and Legends Arceus first got announced, but I kind of just I didn't forget. I was gonna say I forgot, but I didn't forget. I was just like, do I really feel like talking about this right now? Nah. So I just didn't do it. But now I feel like talking about it again, so we're gonna get right into it. Starting off with just the games in general. Pokemon has always been about choosing a starter presented to you by the professor, to then go out into the region to build a team strong enough to beat all 8 gym leaders, the Elite Four, and eventually defeating the champion to become the champion of that region. Along the way, you battle against an evil team trying to use the power of the legendaries to achieve their goals. You also have a rival or rivals that travel alongside you trying to become the champion too. This has been the formula for the past 8 generations. What gave each generation their unique identities was the country the region was based off of, the evil team, the Pokemon specific to each region, and of course, the legendaries. Some aspects of the regions are done really well compared to other regions. If I had to name the strong points of each region, it would go as follows. Gen 1's strong point is that, well, it was the first game, right? So, like, I know that sounds like a weird strong point, but if you really think about it, it kind of makes sense, right? Gen 1 set the standard, it set the formula, basically. Like, you have your 3 starters, Fire, Water, Grass, you have your Professor, you have your rival, you have the 8 gyms, you have the Elite Four, you have the champion. So, Gen 1 is Gen 1 because it set the standard. Like, it set the tone for how the rest of the games are going to be. Even the evil teams, the evil team boss, like, Gen 1 is Gen 1 and you can't change that, right? Honestly, I'd put Gen 2 under the same category because, well, this is mostly because I didn't really play it that much when I was younger or like after when I went back to revisit the games. But I guess we could say that Gen 2 is also another foundation for the Pokemon games, and also that it introduced the dual legendary thing, right? Ho-Oh and Lugia, and then every game after that has like Groudon, Kyogre, Dialga, Palkia, you know? So it really introduced that and just added a bunch of new legendaries into the game in general and mythical Pokemon. Gen 3 is where a lot of people around my age really started to play the games, right? I think Gen 3's strong point is the evil teams. It really felt like, wow, the world's about to end if these guys accomplish their goals, right? Team Aqua and Team Magma. Team Aqua was trying to flood the world. Team Magma was like trying to make like a big earthquake to rebuild land or something. I don't know what they were doing, but they were doing something menacing. That's all you had to know. So that gen was really cool. Had a really cool trio with Rayquaza in it too. Emerald was a great game. Really just solid gen. Generation 4 is a lot of people's favorites, and I think that's just because Cyrus, classic villain. You know, once again, it felt like the world would really end if he was able to accomplish his goal. His evil team was really cool too. The music was great. Cynthia, still one of the hardest champs in the game. I remember Cynthia like it was yesterday, bro. Cynthia scared me as a child. Like it was a crazy battle, and I think it's very memorable for a lot of other people too, and that's why it's like a fan favorite. Like I said earlier, Gen 5 was my first gen, and I'm not biased when I say this because I'm not even a Gen 5 lover like that, but Gen 5 is probably one of the greatest Pokemon games that we have ever gotten. The story, unbelievably great. Like the fact that they had that going on in a Pokemon game was really just mind-blowing to me, because when I played it when I was younger, I didn't realize what was going on. Like I was like, okay, these Team Plasma guys, whatever. But then I revisited it and I was like, wow, this is deep. And it's probably one of the coolest Pokemon characters in general, by the way. I love N. Zora is really cool. Zoroark is really cool. A lot of the Gen 5 mons, even though that's when people started hating on like the Pokemon designs, because like Garbodor is in that gen, Vanillux is in that gen. But I think a lot of the Pokemon designs in that generation were really cool. So they also added moving Pokemon in that gen, like moving sprites, I mean. So it was a really, really solid gen, and some may consider this the peak of Pokemon. Generation 6's strong point is probably Mega Evolution, right? They added Megas, it went 3D. Actually, that's probably the strong point. 3D. 3D Pokemon was like a deal breaker for us, like back in the day. Like you saw Pokemon in 3D, you were like, what is this? Is this even possible? It's possible. And then they added Mega Evolution on top of that, and that was a really, really big point in Pokemon. Like that's when we started transitioning from just like pixels to like, well, it's all pixels, right? It's on a video game screen, but that's when we started transitioning from 2D to 3D, which something killed the game because like a lot of Pokemon lost personality. But I think it was still like a good move. I really didn't mind. Both are fine, but 3D Pokemon and Mega Evolution, Gen 6, wow. A lot of people dislike Generation 7, I think, and I think that's kind of unjustified. The first games were kind of meh, but Ultra Sun and Moon I think were great games. Gen 7's strong point was really that they really tried to change up the game in that gen, right? There's 4 separate islands for the whole region. Each region had a guardian, no gyms, only trials, and then each island had the kahuna that you had to fight to go to the next one. So it really tried to mix up the game, change up the game, which I appreciated, which I liked. There was also the addition of Ultra Beast in that game, Z moves. I think Gen 7 conceptually was really good, but even gameplay wise it was really good. So I don't understand the dislike for Gen 7. Generation 8, well, let's move on to the next part. So before making this video, I had made a survey for my friends to take about Pokemon. A lot of my friends like Pokemon just like me, and a lot of them have very different opinions about the game. So I wanted to get as many opinions as possible so I can make a well-balanced, non-biased video on Pokemon, right? So the questions of the survey were, what is your favorite gen and why? What's your least favorite gen and why? Do you think Pokemon has gone uphill, downhill, or remained the same? Why? And then the last question was just, if you have anything else to say about the games or Game Freak, go ahead and put it in this question. So I'm not gonna go over all of their answers, but I'm gonna go ahead and like summarize some of them that I found really good. And also, I'm gonna answer the question myself. So my favorite Pokemon gen is either Gen 3 or Gen 7. Gen 3 because nostalgia, really, because Gen 3 I really loved Kyogre, I really loved Rayquaza. Didn't really care for Groudon, but Groudon was cool too. So I really love those mons, so like it really just evokes happy memories when I think of Gen 3. Gen 7, because like I said earlier, I think Ultra Sun and Moon are some of the best games that we got. Top 5, top 3, maybe even top 1 for me, because of the cutscenes in Ultra Sun and Moon. Like, when you get to the later half of the game, spoilers, I guess, if you haven't played Ultra Sun and Moon. When the stuff with Necrozma starts happening, the portals open, Nihilego comes out, Pheromosa, Necrozma, Buzzwole, Blastfelin, like all the Ultra Beasts come out. I feel like that cutscene was really cool. Like, you see them come out, and then the Guardians and the Kahunas fighting the Ultra Beasts, right? And that always just stuck with me. I was like, damn, this world really feels like something is going on. And that's what I like about Pokemon games. Like, I like to be immersed into the region, right? And that really just immersed me. Also, when the Necrozma was fighting Solgaleo or Lunala and then he lost, that was a sick thing. And just like, really, maybe it's just Gen 7. At this point, like, I just came to the revelation, maybe Gen 7 is my favorite gen. But it just gave out the same vibes as when Rayquaza came down to stop Kyogre and Groudon from fighting. So I really love that gen. My least favorite gen happens to be Generation 8. That's why I stopped that earlier part on Generation 8, because I'm just going to talk about Generation 8 here. Now, an unpopular opinion of mine is that the Dex cut, I didn't really care for it, right? Because if each region is supposed to be like a whole different place, it made sense to me that some Pokemon cannot be found in a specific region, right? So I was like, okay, Dex cut. But when they say it's a Dex cut because they're like, yeah, no, we don't want to code in all of that, then it's kind of like, that's kind of weird, right? The game just, it didn't feel fun. It didn't feel like Pokemon. Like, I felt like I was literally sleeping and playing the game by myself, right? Because the evil team was a fanboy of one of your rivals. Like, who thought that was a good idea? The final boss, spoilers again, I guess, is a Mon that just appears out of nowhere and just mentioned nowhere before, like 5 seconds you start battling the guy. And then the guy that's supposed to be the evil team leader, it's just some random dude who's just like, yeah, whatever. Like, it just didn't feel like a Pokemon game. Like, the story was whack. Zacian and Zamazenta coming in to fight Eternatus was kind of cool, but like, the story was just whack. Wild Area was cool. VGC was cool because like you can grind the dens for free using like the Switch's time feature, which was what I did. So competitive was made really easy in that gen. But overall, terrible gen, man. Like, DLC, that's another thing. Like, DLC, I would have never thought a Pokemon game got DLC like that. But I'm not against Pokemon games getting DLC, don't get me wrong. But when it's a DLC that completes the game instead of adding on to the game, it's kind of whack. I could really go on and on about Gen 8, but for the sake of time and for the sake of my sanity, I'm just gonna move on to, do I think that Pokemon have gone uphill, downhill, or stayed the same over the years? In my opinion, I think overall we've gone uphill, right? I feel like from Generation 1 to Generation 8, it's been only up. Where the only times where a game was kind of meh, in my opinion, was Generation 6. Even though Mega Evolution and 3D Pokemon was like, wow, I feel like the story in that game wasn't too great. Generation 7, the first games, like I said, is like meh as well, but Ultra Sun and Moon were really good. But then Generation 8 is just bad. So I feel like Generation 8 is bad enough to kind of just make it so that it's either uphill or stayed the same. Because if Generation 8 is setting a precedent for what the rest of the games are going to look like, then we can just say that we've hit a peak at like Gen 5 or Gen 7, and we're just going straight down from here. But I'm going to talk about that in the next part a little bit more, and I'm going to say why I think that Generation 9 may be where everything gets decided. As for any other comments I have on Game Freak or Pokemon, I think that Pokemon as a whole is in an alright spot. I don't think it's in a too bad of a spot. Now seeing like what BDSP and Legends Arceus are going to look like. But when Gen 8 came out, I'm not gonna lie to you, it really did make me falter. Because usually I'm on the side where, well, the Pokemon games haven't really been bad, and I feel like we've been complaining for no reason. But Gen 8 definitely gave the complainers a reason to complain more and kind of proved them right. As for the survey results, the people's favorite gen was Gen 4. 15 people answered, by the way. So it went Gen 4 first, Gen 3 next, Gen 5 after that, and then Gen 6, 7, and 1 were tied at 1 vote. They decided this based off of like nostalgia or just gameplay overall. They said, yep, that's my favorite game. As for least favorite game, like literally almost everyone voted Sword and Shield. Followed by that would be Gen 7 and then Gen 6. So we can clearly see that there is kind of a dip starting from Gen 6 and onwards, and that's why I was mentioning earlier that we may have peaked at Gen 5. As far as if it's going uphill, downhill, or stayed around the same goes, the general consensus was that it was going downhill. A couple of people said uphill, and a couple of people said stayed the same overall. Let me just read off one of my favorite responses here. This user says, top of the morning, 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 top of the morning. So I really feel like that just encapsulated all of Pokemon and Game Freak as a whole. So I just wanted to highlight that message. Thank you for whoever submitted that. Really good work on the survey. All jokes aside, actual answer that I really liked was this one. It says, I think that Pokemon has gone downhill overall since Gen 5. I feel that Gen 5 was the peak of Pokemon at some point. They added moving animations for the Pokemon, which brought them to life. It was also highly competitive at the time. It had its problems, but every Pokemon game has its own problems. However, Gen 5 had a great story, cast, and tons of Pokemon new and old. There was a lot of room for new possibilities, and even a new Dream World abilities, which was a cool way to add something new to different mods. I think Gen 6 was really cool and had potential, but fell short. It felt a bit shallow and incomplete. They marketed Megas as toys and played favorites, which is understandable at first, but at a later point in Gen 6, or S, Megas should have been used as a balancing mechanic instead of making more broken mons. But to backtrack to Kalos, the region was cool. The 3D style was new and fresh. There was a lot of cool and viable Pokemon from the region. Some could have been better. And there was a lot of room to expand the weaker implementations of Kalos, which with a hypothetical Pokemon Z to complete the X and Y trilogy. Diving into the lore of Zygarde and expanding on the strengths that were shown in X and Y. However, Pokemon failed to deliver as Kalos just felt like a very quick and overlooked region with the introduction to Oras, then Sun and Moon. Either way, I divulged from the question too far already. There were small things about each game and gen as they flowed from one to the next that I personally feel has decreased the series' quality over the years. Another one that I liked, but some of you may think is controversial. They say, I think that overall Game Freak is a great company and is constantly stuck between a rock and a hard place. It wants to make new games and add more to the Pokemon world, but also appease its overall very picky and very demanding fan base that it already has. Due to this, it feels like sometimes they make some bad decisions to try to accomplish both, but overall I like their games and their decisions on a large scale. Now this is gonna segue perfectly into the final part and really into what I think about the Pokemon fandom as a whole. So the final part of this video is gonna be talking more of Generation 9 and how I think Generation 9 is gonna be really what decides how Pokemon will go in the future. But before I'm gonna get into that, I'm going to talk about BDSP and Legends Arceus. When the trailers for BDSP and Legends Arceus dropped, a lot of people were quick to point out the flaws in the trailer, right? So BDSP had the whole chibi scandal. Everyone was like, "No way, it's chibi when we could be looking like this." And then Legends Arceus had that chingling that was moving at like 2 frames, and then some other animation that was looking pretty bad. My problem is that every time a new trailer for a Pokemon game drops, Pokemon fans are really quick. Well, I'm not gonna put all y'all in one like umbrella, but some Pokemon fans are really quick to point out every single little issue in the trailer, right? BDSP, they're like, it's chibi, what? Why? Like, we could have it looking like Sword and Shield models. Sword and Shield looks trash, for one. For two, chibi is kind of like a throwback to the old game, so like I didn't really mind it that much, right? Legends Arceus, the frame rate was looking bad, the that Chingling was moving at 2 frames. This Chingling gives me literal PTSD because instead of getting excited that we're getting a completely new Pokemon game that's like completely breaking the formula and it's being made by like Game Freak, Nintendo, like as a main series game, unlike, well, the spin-offs are made by them too, obviously, but like it's like a main series game that we're getting that's completely different in gameplay from like the past previous like Sword and Shield, um Sun and Moon, all that. The fact that you're letting that hype get eclipsed by a Chingling moving at 2 frames in the first trailer kind of just doesn't sit right with me. BDSP by the second trailer was already looking way better. It looked way more polished. Visually is way more pleasing. Cause I must agree though, like I didn't mind that it was chibi, but the trailer itself, like the game itself, looked kind of off. But then when we saw the second trailer, I was like, wow, this game looks really beautiful. Legends Arceus also was looking very good by the second trailer, and now they're adding more Hisuian forms and these trial-like things with the Pokemon that the trainers guard, which is like really cool. Like the game is looking like it's going to turn out as a very good game. Generation 8 was a disaster. Not all of Generation 8. I'm talking Sword and Shield specifically. So, but if Sword and Shield is kind of like a demo slash like building block for games on the Switch, then I feel like every game past Sword and Shield will just be a certified classic. Cause as we can see with Legends Arceus, it's kind of like culminating everything that Gen 8 brought, right? It has Let's Go elements, it has Sword and Shield elements, like it's kind of like fusing everything together, right? So if Gen 8 is gonna be the base for the Switch game, then Sword and Shield is kind of excusable. But if Sword and Shield is actually how the future of Pokemon gaming is gonna look like, then we might be in a little of a pickle here. In my opinion, the overall problem is, well, I can't even call this a problem, is I feel like this is what people are having an issue with, right? Game Freak has been using the same formula for the past however long years Pokemon has been out for, right? So for the past Generation 8, it's been pick your starter, beat the champion, become champion. And in my eyes, that's not really a problem because like that's what Pokemon is, right? That's what we play the game for. But whenever Game Freak tries to do something different, it feels like no one really gives them the props for it. An example of this is Alola, right? Alola was a very different region from what we're used to. And yet, in the survey, it was like the second least liked region, right? Alola didn't have any gyms. A lot of people had said that in their reason why they didn't like Gen 7. They're like, oh, it doesn't have gyms. So here's an instance where Game Freak tries to change the formula up, and then it's just not appreciated at all. Like, I'm not saying that we have to give them flowers for every new mechanic they add into the game, but removing gyms honestly made the game more interesting, right? It made it feel like you're actually on an island fighting. Like, it made sense for the region, so I don't understand why that was a factor which can affect what you thought about the region. So my philosophy or like thought process is, if Game Freak really doesn't care, they'll drop Generation 9. It's gonna be like Pokemon Plus and Minus or something, and it's gonna be terrible. And if it's terrible, then it is what it is. Like, Pokemon is never gonna be the same, and we should get over it, right? I even said like if Generation 9 turns out like super bad like that, I think that's it for me in Pokemon. Not like as a whole, but like new Pokemon games, I probably just won't pay attention to them. But Pokemon games have been the same for like 25 years. Um, Generation 8, well, Sword and Shield did not feel like a Pokemon game at all. The evil team was whack. The story was forgettable. The gameplay was forgettable. Like, they could have focused a lot more on different aspects of the game. And I'm not one to complain about a Pokemon game, honestly. Like, a Pokemon game for me just needs to have like a good story, and I'll be down for that. But the story of Sword and Shield was terrible, and just when that gets piled up on like the rest of the bad elements, like the fact that you had to pay for Pokemon to follow you, even though that's apparently why they cut the decks, because they were not trying to code in all the walking animations. And then Pokemon following you doesn't even really look good in that game. But the graphics kind of looked a little off. The cutscenes were a little off too. So like everything just piled up on top of each other, and then I started to realize like, wow, maybe we are going downhill, you know? But this only started to happen Generation 8 in my opinion. Like Sword and Shield was the only game that was really bad and that we should really like raise an eyebrow for. The rest of the games, like they were decent at worst and amazing at best. So I feel like now is more of a time than ever that we can complain, but earlier I don't think there really was room to complain. Pokemon is a very hard game to get right, in my opinion. There's a lot of different things you can do that some people may like and other people won't. Like, I'm sure there's people that hated Mega Evolution. I'm sure there's people that loved Z moves. I'm sure there's people that loves Gigantamax. But no matter what Game Freak tries to add to the game, there's always gonna be someone that's not happy, right? So I never let these opinions of, oh, Pokemon going downhill because they're adding this, that, oh, they're making it easier, oh, they're doing this, doing that. I never let that phase me, because I know, like, deep down, the game has felt the same and always has felt the same for the past, like, 8 generations, up until Sword and Shield, like I said. So I was never really feeling that, oh, Pokemon is just trash now. While it would be cool to see them change up the game a little bit, the game I fell in love with was the same formula that I was mentioning earlier. You get your starter, you go out on an adventure, you become champion of the region. So, in my opinion, the fact that it feels the same was never a bad thing. The only thing that I care about is that the game actually feels like a Pokemon game. Whereas Gen 8 did not feel like a Pokemon game. So if Gen 8 is setting like how we're going to be handling Pokemon for the rest of like the generations, then I guess Pokemon really did go downhill, and I was kind of just blindly being like, yeah, this is all good, it's fine, you know, like there's a burning fire behind me and I'm just smiling like, yeah, we're good. I really wanted to just make this video as a video to just kind of look back on Pokemon and look back at generations 1 through 8 and just to see like how far we've come and how far we may go with these new games. Cause like I said just now, if the formula doesn't change, I wouldn't mind as long as the story remains to be good. But when a game like Legends Arceus is being developed as a main game and not as like some spin-off or whatever, I feel like that should just make every Pokemon fan excited for the future of the games, right? Instead of paying attention to the Chingling that's moving at 2 frames, can we just pay attention to the fact that we're getting what some people have been waiting for literally since Gen 5, since Gen 6, since it went 3D, since we heard that we were getting a game on the Switch. This game is the game that we've been waiting for. And if this game gets like any of its elements put into Generation 9 and onwards, then we might be getting some of the greatest Pokemon games that we've ever played of all time. That's why, to me, Generation 9 will be a very important point in Pokemon, because the way I see it, we're either going uphill or downhill from here. Honestly, one of the things I think can happen and should happen is that Game Freak focuses less on making new games, but instead makes games like Legends Arceus, where they take a region, they completely reinvent how it looks, how it feels, and how it plays. And just, if you really want to play a different Pokemon game, you just go to these Legends games and just experience the region in a different way. Alright, so that's gonna be it for this video. I'm gonna get a capture card for Christmas, I think. So expect some Legends Arceus gameplay on the channel. I'm probably gonna be BDSP by the time Legends Arceus comes out, so I probably won't play it on the channel. But yeah, Pokemon I hold very close and dear to my heart. So it does suck to see that it may be going downhill. But if it is what it is. I'm getting old. Those games are for kids. Whatever. I may have been coping a little bit hard on that last statement. But yeah, this has been EnderHerve, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.